Anyway, but we have Cuezpallin Rodríguez, our musician. Cuezpallin is really at La Matine, the translation, that's a Nahuatl term. He's really a Renaissance man. That will be the closest thing to the translation. And he was a painter. We have been friends for a while. We have been painting things on our own and comparing our work. But in the last year or 2 years, he has been doing research and learning how to play ancient instruments. I don't know how many of you have been in the events. Were you there yesterday? None of you was there yesterday. Okay, yesterday was the explanation about the philosophical root of the tradition of the Day of the Dead and the indigenous roots of the tradition. So we would like to open this altar. We have been building this altar in this space for over 6 years. And I really we had been having the other events in the Humanities Center as part of the series, End of Life series, that are part of what Dr. Brian Clark, the director of the center, organized for this semester. Every other Tuesday, you have a talk in the Humanities Center about some perspective about the end of life. So this week was about study or understanding of the different points of entry for the Day of the Dead, which is a celebration that Mexico is very well known for, but it's also part of the indigenous roots of this continent and is celebrated in other countries, right? Because as you know, before colonization, we had countries. So there were groups and there were people moving from different places, from South America all the way to Alaska. So this is how we're closing the Day of the Dead week. We had artists on Monday, plastic artists who were talking about this idea of flower and song, which is a philosophical root of the Toltecayo, of the culture. You express yourself, you live your life in order to create beauty and create beautiful things and think with beautiful words. That's why we do poetry, right? Or philosophy is mostly expressed through poetry and through art. So many of you might have seen art, right, in Hollywood and in movies, in Hollywood movies. And this is what we do. The reason why we do this event is that we understand that the market has been attracted to the colors and to the colors and to the art related to this celebration, and we understand that. But that's not the only approach to this celebration. For us in Mexico, it's very deep. It's very joyful too. We joke about it. We have parties about it, but it's very deep because we remember those of us who came before us on these days. For several days, we do food offerings, and sometimes we do political displays like you see a couple of things related to social problems here. You see in the back wall, Las Mariposas Renacen is from a group of students who are from ACHA organization. They created a beautiful display of butterflies to remember the lives of the migrants who have died crossing the border. The border that we have here, 20 miles from us, there's a lot of violence in that border, and the violence is not evenly distributed, right? There are people who are obscured from history who get the violence. We also are commemorating the lives and the struggle of environmentalists from Latin America. They are here. Some of them, about 75% of the assassinations of environmentalists in the world happen in Latin America. In Mexico, and some of the people who are here were actually close to me, or I'm close to their families, especially Betty Cariño. But you can see very prominent people like Berta Cáceres, who was killed for protecting her river in Honduras. So if you have been thinking and preoccupied about the environment and about climate change, we in Latin America have been preoccupied about it for centuries. And we have gotten the other part of the stick too, right? Many people who have defended the environment have paid with their lives, and they're continually paying with their lives for that. So we have some other displays. Some of my students did a display on the opioid epidemic. I think she lost somebody in her family due to the opioid epidemic, and she wanted to commemorate that and to link it to the tradition. So this tradition is for everybody. I don't think we own it, but the purpose of explaining this is that you approach the tradition from a respectful point and are committed to learn about it, right? Many people who have joined, many of my students who have joined this effort end up in the next year, the following years, doing their own altars in their homes, even if they are not Mexican or if they didn't grow up with the tradition. So I think that would be my explanation for the altar, and I would really like, before we start to hear the beautiful music, Quez really did a lot for us. He brought all these instruments that are very fragile. He has been collecting them from different places in Mexico, and he has been even asking some artisans to make the instruments for him. So before we can enjoy his music, we will have two of my students who actually built this. We built it in about an hour, 35 of us, yes. And I came and edited a little bit, but the hard work was my students from Intro to Media Studies. They have been working and reading about this, about the celebration, so I wanted to share, I wanted them to share their experience doing art for the altar. They did their own art, and they also came to help me setting up. So we have Olivia Sinek, and she will tell us about the altar. Would you mind going to the microphone? If you can go in the microphone. I didn't do the microphone, sorry. Thank you, Julia.
Okay, I'm Olivia.
Oh, sorry.
For the altar, I did a cajita, and I focused on the tradition of self-reflection, so I put a mirror on it. And I wrote a poem that was an example of a lot of people's self-reflections throughout their daily life, and that's why it's called The Daily Wave. First, a slight thumping in the side of the chest. A hand goes to the side of the neck. You count to 60. The rate is 115. Second, the chest begins to tighten. More effort is used to fill the lungs with air. You breathe in and out. Third, the cheeks start to redden. The whole upper body goes hot. You take the back of your hand and touch your forehead. Fourth, the mouth begins to dry. Moving the tongue from the top to the bottom of the mouth is more difficult. You drink ice-cold water. Fifth, the body goes into shock. Dizziness sets in and tears start to fall. You lay in bed and focus on your breath. Sixth, you recognize what is happening. Seventh, you go on. I wrote the poem based on what I wanted the cajita to look like, and when I saw a mirror, I kind of wanted to incorporate it, so yeah. It was fun.
Thank you so much. And now we have Julia. Sorry about that. Thank you. And Julia Banishak is going to talk to us about her contribution and her experience building the altar.
Hello, my name's Julia Banishak. I'm a first year here at USD. And I had the most amazing time building this altar. I think that it was such a great way for my class to come together with a sense of community, and also just to honor and recognize this amazing tradition in Mexican culture. And even though I'm not part of that culture, I truly felt so welcomed and so accepted and so grateful to be part of such a special experience. So when thinking about my art project and what I wanted to do, thinking about death and what things that I could honor, I decided to choose the Amur leopard. It's a critically endangered species, like kind of endemic to eastern Russia and northeastern China. And it's endangered because of poaching and the value of its fur, and also the destruction of its habitat due to deforestation in the area. And I kind of wanted to stress that if action isn't taken and if things aren't done, this animal could turn into a Dia de los Muertos kind of calavera. So I decorated it kind of like a calavera. So yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany. I'm a first year taking Dr. Mercado's Intro to Media Studies class. My poem is right here. Basically, yeah, like Julia said, I'm also not a part of this amazing tradition, so I was like super lost on what to do. And I just thought to research a little, see what the like more traditions were about and all that stuff. And I just wrote a short little poem, just kind of describing what it was about. So I'll read that right now. Day of the Dead. On the Day of the Dead, we commemorate and remember. On the Day of the Dead, we celebrate and become better. We connect with the past and expand our horizon. We seek the truth to become enlightened. We reach out to those who helped us shine. Please come talk within this time. On the Day of the Dead, we offer you love. On the Day of the Dead, we see you above.
Thank you. Thank you. Jasmine Beas is also going to talk to us about her art piece, an amazing, amazing art piece, and her experience. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine Beas. I'm a second year sophomore student here at USD, and I'm taking Professor Mercado's Intro to Media Studies class. And so for this assignment, we were instructed to create something from our own hands. And I personally enjoy creating art. I find art to be very cathartic for me. It is a way for me to express myself. And when I was given this opportunity to be able to paint something that represents not only this part of Mexican culture, which I am a part of, I also saw it as an opportunity to really define my own meaning to death. So when we talk about death, we always seem to be so sad about it. And Dia de los Muertos basically says death is very sad, but death is also beautiful. And it is important for us to remember those who have passed and who were with us for such a long time. So looking back here at my painting, this is an indigenous woman. She's wearing traditional clothing, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but she has flowers coming out of her face, so there's certain parts of her face that are coming out. And these flowers are the flowers that you see here today, Cempasúchil, and they basically represent like the fragility of life. So for me, I wanted to depict a meaning of death that was more of the self and nature. So death is a natural process of nature. It is something that occurs with every living thing. And instead of seeing it as something very sad and dark, we want to see it as something that is just so beautiful. Like these flowers, like this altar that you see, it is beautiful. And that is what it is. So this is basically a meaning of death for me. It's something beautiful. So
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see some really, really old, not old, like friendly faces and people I've met. Old friends. Dr. Perez, Gail, we go way back, and Dr. Mercado, we've known each other for a long time, and we've collaborated, and that's a lot because, you know, that means like working together and being successful at things, you know, at projects and stuff. So there's a special place in my heart for them, Thank you all for having me. I think there's a lot of pieces up here that hopefully you get to see. I kind of consider myself, my real passion is art, and having studied a lot of Western art, at some point I just went to live in Mexico, and that led me to try to study the codex and study the language and study all the stuff that I didn't have access to here. And that was like the window or the door for me that opened up. In studying the codices, I realized that I couldn't interpret, understand, or paint them because I didn't understand the symbolism. So that led me to have to learn history, but more than that, actually making stuff, making things, and understanding how things work. So that led me to becoming a farmer, growing crops, cooking, learning how to cook, learning all kinds of stuff that I had like neglected all my life. And so I bring all those things all those aspects of my life kind of contributed to like my learning. And it sounds like, or it may look like it's all very transdisciplinary, like all these different things from different disciplines, but it really is like, for me, what it means to be an artist when the things I want to know are all over the place in all these other areas, right? So I've learned to accept that and nurture myself from that. So last year I ended up in Mexico, and finally, after a long time, of working on the area of music, which is probably the one I had neglected the most, I finally started dedicating some time to music. And I came across some great people over there, some elders that were willing to teach me. So I think it was like the time. So I'll be sharing some of the things with like the best intention.
Thank you.
That's the most talking now, probably. Okay, so we always, also I wanted to say that, well, we always start with a sound that has to do with the wind. That's always like the first step. A sound instrument. It's a calling to bring people to wake up. But it's all vibrations. We don't call it a lot. We don't really call it music. We call it sounds and vibrations. So kind of we'll explore some of that today. So this is the first sound that kind of get us to kind of wake up. Kind of like that first cup of coffee. And for me, that was the first step in music, was realizing that I didn't know how to breathe properly. I could not do that. It was a shock how long it took me to be able to use that and understand that I was using parts of my body that I had not used before. Parts that did not have to do with my throat and stuff. So in the ancient world, they talk about 5 souls, or 5 entities that we need to take care of, right? And it's very significant for today, because those five areas of ourselves are the parts that sometimes get neglected or get lost, or go into the spirit world first and take all the other ones with us, right? So the breath is kind of like the focus of this is the main thing that I learned. We have some instruments here that represent all the elements. This is a natural instrument that grows on trees.
What is the name?
Atetopoli.
Atetopoli.
Yeah, or they also call it a bule in Spanish. Yeah, or it's like a gourd, like a long gourd. Yeah. But these are actually used, it's also called, it depends how you use it, but it's also, tlachiqueros use it. It's used to open the maguey plant in the center of the heart and extract the sacred liquid. Pulque. Yeah, and I'm gonna need some help. So this is the easiest one to use. So I'm gonna.
I can do it.
You can do it. Okay, okay. Just despacito, despacito. Yeah, and so I'm gonna start off with something kind of like mellow.
You tell me when.
Yeah, it's up to you. It's like,
Okay.
you can,
This is the rainy stage, right?
yeah.
Palo de lluvia.
Yeah. Follow you. So from now on I'm just gonna play, and I'll explain at the end or something. But I just want you to kind of like feel vibrations. You know, if you need to close your eyes, go for it. If not, yeah. So just whenever you. Oh, does anybody else want to participate? If you don't want to, if you want to participate, go after others. If you want to participate. All right. Okay, it'll get to everyone. All right. You ready? Okay, let's do it. We gotta like, we need a little beat. Who else is like
Music minded.
somebody? No music minded. Somebody. I'll start. If I had more hands, I could play more instruments. Más como el corazón. Like, just.
You tell me. This
Yep.
is the first time I do it.
Okay, good. It's the first time. So, just. Con el corazón. Okay, everybody's gonna follow your rhythm. Okay, good. This one is from Michoacán, excavated in some of the archaeological sites. My friend, the one who's building these, he's taking samples from the museums or from archaeologists and reconstructing them. Those things, you just shake them. You just shake them. Yeah. gonna be interactive.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep pushing for it.
That's very good.
Okay.
Should I keep it?
Yeah. This one is like this. That one, it's like side to side.
Yes.
You know, like rain.
It's a rain.
Make it rain. This one, I'm all about sharing, so this one, we'll go this way because
Yeah, share it.
this
It's
one
really fun.
is like this. Like, who has nails? Yes. We need all.
That's nice.
This one is supposed to be jaguar. So, we need a jaguar in
Oh,
the
do you want to
song.
do it?
Okay.
Do you want to do it?
I was in Mexico and
It's a cat. Somebody accepted that.
Right. Okay. Just,
Sure.
you ready?
Heartbeat.
Beat.
Rain.
Some rain. Some rain.
Yeah.
Some, yeah. I like you guys. It's like we're a band. You guys stop and I stop. That's pretty good. I didn't even give any instructions. Okay, I think I'm ready.
For a break?
For a water
Oh,
break.
sure.
But
We have another poem.
yes, another poem. Let's mix it up, and I am going to focus on who the next participant could be.
This is really fun. It's like the heartbeat. You want to do it? No? Anybody wants to do it? You want to do it? I can do it. Yeah, it's a heartbeat. It's really, I've never done it before. So we have actually Jesus Martinez Saucedo prepare a poem by Natalia Toledo. So he's going to read it for us. Natalia is in Mexico City and she's very sad that she couldn't be with us. So you want to play, you want to read the poem on the microphone.
So first I'll be reading it in Spanish, and then I have translated it for you all in English. La herida de los linderos. Paso mis días sobre las mejillas y los brazos de los muertos. Aquí, en esta casa ya no quedan mejillas ni brazos. Nuestros padres migraron, y con ellos nuestros corazones. The wound of boundaries. I spend my days between the cheeks and arms of the dead. Here, in this house, cheeks nor arms remain. Our parents migrated, and with them our hearts. Thank you.
This is more than a poem, it's a little story. So it has been a long time since I recite any poetry, but I will tell you the story. This is about death, and actually, if you see the poster for the event, I paint. I'm not an artist. but I really like the colors and I really like to paint. And I don't know if you have seen the poster for the event. When you walked out, you'll see it. It's a woman, it's a Catrina, a skeleton dressed up as a Ismeña. Natalia is from the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, and she's dressing with this very colorful and beautiful dress. And she's crossing the border in San Isidro, in Imperial Beach, in the beach. And you see it's a high noonday. She's crossing the border with very, very light feet, right? A lot of us cannot cross the border that easily. They request IDs and they interrogate us when we cross that border. So she's crossing the border and there are butterflies. The butterflies are a symbol of migration and they are also a symbol of rebirth. So it's very significant that we have those butterflies made by students in remembering the lives of migrants who have died because of the border violence. This poem, this story inspired me to do that painting. And I titled it La Muerte, Pies Ligeros, The Light Feet of Death. And I'll tell you why it's called The Light Feet of Death. I invited Natalia. I have known Natalia for a few years. I invited her about a year ago to come here. She has come to recite her poetry to LA and to San Diego. And I really love because she does, I don't speak Vindisa, I don't speak Zapotec, so I won't be able to do a very good job speaking Zapotec. But she does translate her poems from Zapotec, which is her mother language, to Spanish. And I was going to do the translation to English. But she did this story, and Natalia is the daughter of very famous Mexican painter. I don't know if you have ever heard of Francisco Toledo. Have you ever heard of him? If you haven't, he was like Diego Rivera, and he was an activist. He was also Zapotec, and he was very, very, very famous in Mexico and is very, very famous abroad. He passed away about a month and a half ago, and I talked to Natalia about this. She's mourning right now. The country is mourning. Francisco Toledo did a lot of work for the culture, promoting Oaxacan culture. And I remember once I was sitting in the plaza in Oaxaca, and there was this wind. Speaking about wind, there was this quick wind that passed me, and a friend of mine who was talking to me said, "Oh, el maestro Toledo, Master Toledo." And there was this old guy who was disheveled, walking as fast as he could. That was the wind, right? Next to me, and I saw him walking. So that was the famous painter, right? It was the most famous Mexican painter that we had alive. He passed away a month and a half ago. So I really understand why Natalia is not here. She told me, the death of my father is aching everywhere in my bones. So she really wanted to be here. But this is a story. She wrote, she worked very closely to her father. And this is a story she wrote because he made some paintings about a death, the skeleton with shoes. He was the son of a shoemaker. And he made the skeletons. He painted the skeletons with shoes, and that's why they call the light feet of death. So the story is about a death who comes to Earth and decides to take everybody, right? And he decides to make this trick to take people to the underworld, and the trick is that there is a big cord. I don't know if you have ever jumped. How do you say that in English? Jump the rope. Yes. So the death has the death in Spanish we call it female. Spanish is a very gendered language, but also in Nahuatl and in Zapotec, it doesn't have a gender. So same as English. So you might hear me saying she, la muerte, she, but we're also translating from indigenous languages. So what the death does is she brings this rope and calls a man and humans to jump it, and says, if you will be immortal if you keep jumping forever, and you will never die, right? If you keep jumping. So the death was very sure that the man was going to be tired. So the man came, and he was the son of a shoemaker, and he had these beautiful shoes, these beautiful leather shoes, and he started to jump the rope that the death was moving. So of course, he got tired, he ran out of breath, and he got really tired. And he was taken to the underworld, and the skeleton actually took the shoes of the man and put it on herself. So that's why she had the very light feet, and she ended up with shoes. You see her. I'll pass by the book to you. This is Natalia's book, and with her father's paintings. So you see the death with shoes. That is very, very happy. The death does the same with the toad. The toad comes and say, hey, I want to live forever. I want to be immortal. And the death does the same. But the death now, it has its shoes. It has shoes. You will see it in the paintings. You will be able to see Francisco Toledo's paintings. And the toad comes and jumps, and the toad gets tired very, very soon. And the toad has to go to the underworld. And then the iguana says, well, I want to live forever. I want to be immortal. And I am going to jump the rope. And the death is very happy, because the death knows that the animals and the man and humans are not going to last, right? Jumping the rope. So the iguana doesn't last. Same happens to the coyote. The coyote says, well, I'm very fast, I'm very swift, I'll go and jump the rope. It lasts a few hours, the coyote. The coyote is very, very good. But he gets tired and has to go to the underworld. And then the rabbit comes and says, hey, I'm very good, I'm very dexterous, I'm very fast, I'm a rabbit, I will make it, I'll be able to do it. So it doesn't last. The rabbit lasts a few days, but it doesn't last. And there is the rabbit jumping on the death with the beautiful shoes, leather shoes from the man. So, and then it comes the crocodile, right? Same thing. Crocodile can't last. So, and the bat also. The bat says, well, I'm very good. I'm blind, but I can fly, and I'll be able to last. It doesn't last. The snake doesn't last either. So, but there is the dog comes in, and finally, there is this little chapulín. And Dr. Clark, I don't know if he's still here. I cannot see you. Yesterday, there was my friend Jose Gonzalez, who is Mixtec, came with an offering. This is what you have to do when you visit an altar in different towns. You bring an offering. And he said, well, I'm bringing 3 things. I'm bringing an apple to your altar, and I'm bringing this little plate with full of grasshoppers. And I love grasshoppers. And I immediately went and took one, and I ate it. And Dr. Clark, Jose invited you to eat one, and you ate one, right? It was your first time eating a grasshopper. So we call it, in Nahuatl, we call grasshoppers chapulines, chapulín. So, and the third thing that he brought to Jose Gonzalez brought to the altar was himself. We asked him, and he said, well, the third thing is myself, my presence. So it was very nice. You are all invited to go to the Humanities Center and see the altar and see the chapulines there, the grasshoppers. So guess what? Guess what happened to that with the funny shoes? Well, the grasshopper said, grasshoppers jump and jump and jump and jump. And Oaxacans really have a hard time. They have to cast them with nets to eat them because they are delicious. They are really delicious. I don't know if you have heard that there is a movement to eat better source protein in the world, right? And we in Mexico have been eating insects forever. We didn't have meat, right, until about 500 years ago. The meat, the cow meat, and we didn't have cow, we didn't have pork. So we ate insects and we ate guajolote, which is turkey, right? So we have been eating a lot of different insects, and chapulines are really nice. So the story is that the chapulin said to the death, "I'll jump the rope." And the chapulin is still alive, and the death got really, really tired and had to go back to the Mictlan. That's it. And we're remembering Natalia with this story. Thank you. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that I didn't mention, but these instruments, they're made out of, they're special for the people because they're made from the 4 elements, right? I mean, it's obvious, but we'll just say it. The clay is from the earth. You have to use water to mold them, fire to make them dry up, right? And then wind to use them. So all the elements are used. So it's not, they could be made out of another material, but this is the material preferred, right? And clay is very fragile. So we're very lucky that it's survived all these years, because there's pieces that are like 5,000, 6,000 years old, found in like the Mayan area and some of the other areas in the Gulf. That because of the climate, and because the population is non-destructive to the environment in certain areas, they just survive. So I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say that kind of to start us off, I want to say I'm thinking of kind of like sharing a chant, like an hour chant. But first, I want to share a chant that was told to me by elders. When I go to ceremonies, this is usually what they say. So I want to share it. Very, very sacred, special chant for the elders. And if you're a young person and you're looking after elders, then you need to know the meaning of this chant. So I'll say the first part, which is get. And everyone over there on that side, you say roll. 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 Okay. And then I'll say another part, and then you say fe. Fe. So your 2 parts are roll and then fe. But I'm gonna say my part twice. So you'll say roll twice, right? I'll say get, and then you say your part. I'll say again. Call and response. Yeah? Yeah. You guys got it? Yes. No confusion? Okay. All right. This is also the elders. There's a lot of medicine and wisdom in them, and so it's a joyful chant. So I'll play a couple first, and then first thing in the morning, if you're around elders, that's what they want. And then, that's always the chant. Like, ¿dónde está José? Quiero José. The joyful chant. Oh, also, there's flutes, from what I've been learning, there's flutes for meditation, there's flutes for introspection, and there's flutes that were used simply to experiment with vibrations that have to do with medicinal plants, right? So a lot of the sounds, you really gotta like, it might be sounds you've never heard or you're not used to hearing, you know? Some of the mellow ones are over here, but some of these other ones, these little ones, they're like, you feel it somewhere in your body, right? So like, they're meant to do that. So. What happened? What happened to the band? Okay. All right, you ready? All the musicians over there? Or the instrument players? All right, we're gonna need your support. You guys got the cheapest tickets, but it's okay. Come over here. For you guys. Ran out of breath. Okay. This is a famous, but I want to see this. These are the, when I mentioned earlier that there's some for the brain, I want to share the difference real quick. So this is like meant to wake up stuff in your body. No. I'll do it a little bit so you don't like overstimulate. My mom's like, "Oh, that's too much."
That's the shape it's called.
This is the shape of duality of life and death. Right? So it literally, when I play it, I can feel like both like my sides of my brain and ears and like kind of like come together. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's supposed to do that, but that's kind of what happens. Oh, okay, this little one. My friend says this is a crocodile, and then I say it's a dinosaur. And then, this famous one. I think Can I do this one? No. I want to try these, but they're closed, so I gotta open them.
I'll open them.
Okay. So, let's see. So, I get a lot of questions because there's a lot of skulls and all this stuff. And one thing I was told was, let's not forget that underneath our skin, we are a skull. So maybe that line is a little blurred in the philosophy of like the ancients. It wasn't as like distinct. Now that I just saw a musician walk in, I'll be able to do some chant while he does something that I have for. So, I want to do, I want to share a real chant, a different type of chant. The other one's pretty real too. And then maybe this, if you pick it up, you can do it for yourself. You know? I worked on this with my teacher for a long time. So I'm just going to share one part of it, because it's really like a private chant, like thing that I did for me, but I'll share a piece of it. And I'm going to ask my friend Angel to help me out. So, are you good on the drum? You want to share it? Does anyone want to do one instrument? Like you're like, I want to, but I'm scared, but I want to try it. Over there, in the back section. No? You guys?
I'll do
You want that?
You
Okay.
want to do
Anyone
something?
else? Over there. Okay. Which one do you want? Come on.
Just get to
Okay.
now.
Algo.
Right here.
Yo voy a compartir un tanto.
Ok.
Y pero ¿cuál quieres? ¿Cuál te sabe? Oh yeah. Oh man. Okay. We got the drum. You're still good with that? Okay. Does anybody want to try this? Nice. There's only one way, and you try it, you'll be like, oh wait, oh geez.
Do you want me to introduce Angel?
Yeah.
Sí. This is very surprising, very nice. This is another very well-known musician from North County, Angelita. Yeah, I have been trying to meaning to invite you, but I always think of you, you know, you're very busy, you're playing in all these places, so I thought, of course, he gently offered to explain us all the research, but you have been a musician for a very long time.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for being here, Angel. Thank you for joining us.
Hi everyone. Actually, I want to hear my friend. It's the first time I hear him play. Then I am interested in I play. I'm a musician. I play guitar. I compose my own songs. Every songs are cultural. Then all of this stuff is really nice for what we are doing for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. This is an honor.
Drum beat. We start with a drum beat. I apologize. I didn't share the chant before, so then you won't know it. So I'll just say we have to. So that was our pre-test. So I realized that if I do the chant, you won't know what I'm saying. So the part I want to share is that I think is useful is I wrote this as a greeting to the sun when I wake up. So I was working with my teacher. I'm like, I need something for myself to take care of myself, you know. So I wrote this like that, and I consult him to see what I can share or not, you know. And so we have a really good relationship. So they know that they know him. So with Armando. Yeah. So the easy part for us would be Motlawil, Chitech, Chikawa, because the rest is long. Motlawil, Chitech, Chikawa. So Motlawil. So usually I say Tehuatzin, Totatzin, Tonati. So great son, chicken fast pishti, Totona, like strengthen my spirit. And then this part is Iwaika Motlawil, and with your light, Motlawil, with your light, Motlawil, Chitech, Chikawa, give me strength. So Motlawil, Chitech, Chikawa. But it's good because you use it when you see the sun. You can ask for that, and a good way to ask for strength for yourself, for your soul spirit, which is the five part. So Motlawil, Chitech, Chikawa is what we're gonna practice. Yeah? So, okay, so back to the drum beat. Chikawa. At least we're awake. Another. Yeah. So, are there more points? Oh, ¿Más points?
¿Más perdón?
¿Más points?
Sí.
Yes.
Jesús.
Oh, they're not. Wait, I'm awake.
Yeah. Sí. Jesús is going to read another poem. Is that going to be in Spanish? Sí.
Spanish and English.
Okay, thank you.
So this poem, just a little bit of context. I worked for about 1.5 years with a Mixtec community. They're migrants here in Linda Vista. And so this poem is for my great teachers, which were 4 women that I worked with. Florencia, Amelia, Margarita, and Delfina. And it's titled, there's some Mixtec in it, and I'll be translating it as I go. These are some words that I learned. It's titled Desde Ingacio. Ingacio means el otro lado, the other side, which is another way of saying the U.S. So, desde Ingacio, recuerdo cómo mi madre dibujaba su río y una lágrima recorría mi mejilla. Recuerdo aquellos días con nostalgia, desde Ingacio, desde la distancia. Desde Ingacio escucho el canto al jugar por el verde crespo del cerro, de la Valley. Se oye la banda cantarle a la Virgen de mi pueblo. Desde Ingacio, desde la distancia. Desde Ingacio preparo shitá para mis nietos. Cortamos juntos, mis hermanos y yo, la frágil Itacuán. Festejamos a nuestros difuntos desde Ingacio, desde la distancia. Desde Ingacio vivo el silencio de ser mal vista por usar huipil, por hablar humildemente. Pero en mi boca se resguarda la voz de Savi, la lluvia. Aún desde Ingacio, aún desde la distancia, aún desde mis recuerdos. From Ingacio. From Ingacio, the other side, I recall how my mother would draw out her river, and a tear would travel down my cheek. I reminisce those days with nostalgia. From Ingacio, from a distance. From Ingacio, I hear the song while playing across the green curl of the hillside of La Valley, little birds. The band singing to the Virgin Mary of my hometown is heard. From Ingacio, the other side, from a distance. From Ingacio, I prepare chita, tortillas, for my grandchildren. Together we cut, my siblings and I, the fragile Itacuan, marigolds. We celebrate our deceased from Ingacio, from a distance. From Ingacio, I live the silence of being frowned upon for using huipil, for speaking humbly. But my mouth safeguards the voice of Savi, the rain. Even from Ingacio, even from a distance, even from my memories. Thank you.